1st century. And then on top of these first walls are built some Carolingians from the 9th century and the early 800s, when the Carolingians were very dominant in Germany. But other than that, you just have to make your own conclusions. That big cathedral in the background is the Cathedral of Frankfurt, which I believe was not damaged during the war, because it doesn't look like a reconstruction. But the buildings around it are all new buildings, probably because of the war's destruction.
Yes, so this is the beginning of our Germany trip, and we're sure glad to be here.
I've been able to pick up a little bit.
We're still in Frankfurt, and we have the scene here of what the center of Frankfurt looked like after the bombing. What it looked like before the bombing.
Yes, I remember the 12 of them put the itinerary together, which was born
and what it looks like today. We're in Würzburg, and we are at the residence, and this is the church of the residence, die Hofkirche. We're looking at the dome now, coming down. We are here in Würzburg. We've just come out of the cathedral called the Hofkirche, and this is the residence in Würzburg, built by an emperor for his home, and it's a modest little place, high Baroque in style. Inside the main reception room, the ceiling and all the alcoves have Grecian style art on them. In the main entry room, we have a large medallion on the ceiling. This was built in the early 1700s.
Hold it a minute. I'll get you right there.
Up the stairwell, and in the ceiling is this incredible painting. It goes on and on and on and on. It was the bishop who built this little establishment, and there he is. How holy he was, we do not know. He certainly had money, and he certainly had artistic taste. This is his small dining room, which is about 70 feet high and about 70 feet by 60 feet. Has a large fireplace, ornate walls, chandeliers, and a very interesting stove. This is the building we are in right at this time, right in the center of it. Würzburg was 87% destroyed during World War II, and it has been, this structure itself was badly damaged and has been reconstructed. Gold leaf. And outside of the residence is this marvelous garden with flowers and trees and a fountain which goes all the way behind the residence.
Too. And it's purple here. And big.
Under each tree is a sculpture. And in the back is a wonderful rose garden, stretching a long way all around. It's partly open.
Beautiful.
Look at all the buds.
Yeah.
Buds all over.
And Otto and Martha's, Henny's, you know, her house, she has tons of buds on one stem.
We are now in the historic town of Rottenburg. It's an old walled city that's pretty much self-contained, and we'll go into the church. Built in the 12th, 13th, and 14th centuries. It's so large and massive, it's hard to get an idea of what it's like. Let's go into the church. This is a Catholic chapel, and it's marvelous, simple Gothic architecture with all the accoutrements of being Catholic. This is the Museum of Crime. And we go up these circular stairs. Up the circular stairs. Keep going, and up and up and up. Up and up and up. With many displays how people lived in those days. Und was ist das?
These are the brands, the old cow brands, you know,
What's-
the Big Six and the Texas 8 right there.
Well, that's how they would identify their people.
Yeah, that's how they identified the slaves. They know who slaves were.
Yes. We continue up some steps, and we see the wall to our left and a wall to our right. These fortified cities were for the protection of the people against all of the invading hordes and neighbors who wanted to come and destroy the town and steal everything they had. Must have been a pretty wild and vicious life in those days, Frank.
Oh, yeah.
They would look out these windows, and Frank, what'd you say they would do?
Well, I said if this were the modern days, I have my shotgun barrel sticking out there, both barrels, but back in those days, what they would do is throw stones and boiling water and boiling oil. That's about the best they could do. And I bet those folks down below knew enough to stay out of the way, too.
We'll be going through this doorway, and we continue to be in the same area with the wall to our left. Thick walls, about 3 to 4 feet thick, and a huge area here where you could look out this window onto the courtyard, and then, of course, continuing to go straight ahead with all the beamworks on the top of us, above us here. A water system was developed here which brought water in to the walled city way back in 1594, and the water came in by pipes. These, of course, aren't the original pipes, but they're the place where they came in to feed, to provide water for the city. This entire town was built between the years 1250 and 1500, and was as a self-contained town. It was originally, of course, Roman Catholic, and later on it became Lutheran. The small chapel that we saw earlier has never been used for worship services and is now a museum, but it was the bedroom for some of the folks at earlier times. Common everywhere we go are window boxes with lots and lots of flowers, and hanging especially from the terraces and from the windows. They're always very beautiful. This sign in front of this beautiful little house here in Rottenburg says, "This house does not belong to me. The person who comes after me will not own it either. It's no need talking about the third owner. O wanderer through this world, to whom does this house belong?" And again, the ever-present flower boxes with a grapevine growing up by the window. Of course, predominant in the town is the great cathedral, which we're heading to right now. Horse and carriage turning now. I decided to leave my dictionary at home.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. But if I needed, when this great cathedral was Roman Catholic, it had one of the relics, one of the famous relics of the Middle Ages, a relic of blood, and so it attracted many pilgrims, and therefore there was a lot of money to build a big building. It is now evangelical or Lutheran, and as you can see, you drive down through an archway underneath the main building. door has a sundial on each side, marking out the time of day. Appreciation for art and its use in preparing worshipers is seen everywhere. And gargoyles are seen too as an effort to ward off evil spirits, I suppose, in the days of early Catholicism. Built in the 1400s. And we'll enter in now. Now I'm inside of the great church, and here is the relic retained for the entertainment of tourists called the Blutaltar, or the altar of blood. Since this is now a Lutheran church, the relic is only there for the purpose of tourists, and it's put upstairs in the balcony. This is the famous relic that was that drew so many tourists and brought in so much money. I mean, so many pilgrims, and brought in so much money. And today it's up here as a tourist attraction with incredibly beautiful wood carving all around. The dimensions of this and other cathedrals is just almost beyond comprehension. The ceiling here must be well over 100 feet high, with buttress and with a modern pipe organ. It would be a delight to hear that played. As you can see, there's a choir loft down below in front of the pipe organ, and then all the way to the front is the great narthex, not the narthex, but the place of worship where the pulpit and the communion table are. From the floor level, you can see the very front of the area from where the worship service is conducted. This is obviously a high Lutheran church. If this pulpit were in the front and center, I would love to be able to preach from it. There's room here for 40 elders to sit during the worship service. They look like very uncomfortable benches. And then again we see the stained glass from a much closer vantage point. Each one of the panels depicting another biblical scene. I suppose that much of this is left over from the Roman Catholic days, and since it's a high Lutheran church, they didn't worry too much about having lots of statues and stained glass around. This building was begun in the year 1311, and this is the altar of the 12 apostles. And as we look to the other end of the building, we see the Tauf, the baptismal fount here, and going all the way to back is the modern pipe organ with 5,500 pipes. Frank, you're a bit of an artist. Can you tell us a little bit about that architecture there?
Well, this is a typical Gothic church in the sense that in about the 9th century, Gothic architecture took over from the Roman semicircle type of architecture. And by that kind of a Gothic, which is more of a point, they also discovered that if you would build high columns up and rest the roof on the columns, that you could then support the columns themselves with this Gothic structure in the middle, and you get a very high structure. However, if you got it really high, you had to use the flying buttresses. You can see the flying buttresses just a dozen feet or so below the top of the roof.
Right up where you said that's for.
And those flying buttresses are actually what stops those walls from collapsing. And they're very ornately done also. Sometimes in the Middle Ages they tried to make them even higher than that, and they had cases where the walls would actually collapse. So I think that's probably as high as you can reasonably make them with the materials that they had in those days.
These oaken doors are somewhat typical of the doors that we've seen in a number of houses around here. These have the polished brass, and they're very proud of it apparently, and keep it nicely polished. And as we turn down the street now, we're going the opposite direction from the cathedral. We're coming to some of the main shopping area of the town, which has been, of course, turned into a commercial center, but this was all within the walls of this one town, medieval town. This is the main shopping square of the town of Rottenburg, and obviously it's been kept well, but it wasn't a lot different 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 years ago when it was actually occupied. Today it's a tourist center, of course, but what a lovely area. And another church and chapel over there with a nice fountain here in the square. Now this is another cathedral. It's the oldest of the church buildings in this entire complex. We'll go in now. Yeah. A beautiful tower. We'll return to this church in a little while since it is not open yet. Frank, we're looking at the town hall here
Okay, I'm just looking at my map.
with the high spire, and he's going to tell us
Okay, the
when-
town hall
when
dates from the period between 1250 and 1400. The front is the Renaissance style, built between 72 and 78. And the arch is even later in 1681.
Huh.
But the beginning, the basic building is in the 13th century.
And of course, there's the great Nutcracker.
No, I'm
Oh.
afraid.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you for your
Do I
understanding.
have to wipe off what I put on? Muss ich es aufnehmen?
Oh, nein,
Nein?
that's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
vielen Dank. Vielen Dank. This is another section of the town hall, the main entrance to it, and I'm always amazed at the beauty of all of the flowers that are grown on the balconies and verandas and window boxes. And across from the town hall is another beautiful building with a sundial all the way at the top, and with a calendar of the dates of the month, and of course with a clock, a 12-hour clock. Many of the signs that you see are in Latin because the buildings go back quite a long time. These have been around for a long time. 600 years it's been a hotel. With the year 1593 and the coat of arms in front of it, and the year looks like 1629. And of course, they begin with the stalks, where people put their heads through.
I'm not sure exactly what Wayne has done here, but I'm taking a picture of him in a very prime medieval holding place. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get out, so I'm going to stop this off before you're able to see. Does it stop?
Of course, other people get stuck in it too. We've come down a narrow stairway here, and we're going down into the dungeon at this point. At this point, we'll see the instruments of torture that were used by the people of those days, the racks and other instruments used to torture the prisoners. Those look a bit sharp. And can they be turned?
It doesn't say what it is. It just says for stretching or for corporal punishment.
Corporal punishment, my guess is you would die if you were on there very long.
Yeah, you wouldn't last very long on that.
Because they can be turned and tear you up.
With the prisoner fastened to the bench.
That sounds good. Now, can I see? Let's see. Put it on regular. Put it on straight. The wooden wheel with the blade on it was the worst kind of punishment. The wheel, the prisoner would be stretched on the ground, and then the wheel would be thrown on his arms and legs, crushing his bones and cutting them off. It was reserved only for murderers. The stretch ladder was used to stretch the prisoner, and they would be tied at the top with their hands and at the bottom with their legs, and they would be pulled, as in this fashion. The witch's chair with spokes, found on the other side of this iron gate, was not very comfortable, I suspect. See all those points that you had to sit on.
This is what you had to do. You were chained to it. It says, you see, see, can I shine? You wear this. The other one says liar. Here you go.
Cheating and gambling have been a problem through the history of mankind, and it says today in Germany a man or a person cannot be held responsible for any gambling debts. And we have, this is what they had to do years ago when they were gamblers and they had debts. They'd have to wear this around the town.
Certainly this was an effective measure.
The shame mask had a whistle on the front, and at every breath the person would whistle, calling attention to his evil. And of course there are the portable stocks.
It's on.
This is called a shame mask here, and it was for blabbermouth women. It has big ears because they hear everything, and a big tongue because they talk about everything. And they had to wear this for a certain period of time depending on their crime.
This is what happens in the medieval age. If you didn't like the sermon and you started going to sleep, you get fined. Or if you actually snore, then you have to wear one of these things around your head. If you're supposed to also, if you get sleepy, you just stand up and listen to the sermon standing up.
Oh.
So you know who's sleeping.
And this is the executioner's helmet, which he wears so that the person who's getting executed and other people watching don't necessarily know who he is. He has a very long nose. Here's a little diorama of what school was like. And we just go down to the bottom where it says the punishments that children would have: kneeling on a log of wood, caning on the fingers, caning on the buttocks, ear pulling, ass of shame hung around the neck, sitting on the ass of shame, the donkey, dunce cap, lock up, and standing in the corner.
Yeah, well, we
This one's getting a little whipping
There,
here.
that one's getting an earful right over there.
And there's an ear pulling.
Sitting on an ass of shame, donkey's dunce's cap.
There are these metal relief figures all over this building, and here's one of them of God testing Abraham in the sacrifice of Isaac. We see the knife raised and Isaac on the altar. Not everything was miserable in those days. There were certificates given to people for their service in gardening and in all different kinds of arts. And there were people given attention, and people were sainted, and noblemen were donned with all kinds of honors. This crown was one of the highest symbols of the Reich for over 200 years, over 800 years. It's a beautiful jeweled crown with a scepter and with another small crown by its side. All kinds of swords and instruments of war and punishment were used in those days. Beautiful horses coming.
The people are better than horses.
There are some tourists by the outer wall, and the outer wall stretches about, 30 to 40 feet high and runs around the entire city, which we are soon to be leaving behind, the city of Rothenburg. And this is the wall from the outside, silhouetted against the sky, and going for a long, long distance down that way. All around, in fact, all around the entire complex. We are in Marlsweissach now. We are in Marlsweissach. We're in Marlsweissach, and it's still the 14th of August, 1997. And what a delightful little town, what a delightful supper we had here. And all the beautiful little places here. And over here, of course, is the Evangelische Kirche, the Lutheran Church of Marlsweissach. And we just had a nice dinner here with Johannes Gortner and his wife and daughter Julia, who are wife and daughter over there. We'll be going with them in a minute. And we just had a delightful evening here. Here in this graveyard, or actually it's a memorial to the war dead. There's the French War, goes back before World War I, and behind that are the soldiers who died in World War I. And here are the soldiers who died in World War II. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 crosses on that side, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side. And if we look carefully to the back there, one of these crosses has on it the name Storff, and that was the name of Wayne Brauning's great-great-grandmother, actually perhaps, yeah, great-great-grandmother, Storff, and that name had two F's on it. We'll move on to the graveyard and to house number 1 now. So far, the closest we can get to our name here in Marlsweissach is this man, Ferdinand Breunig. And I met him in 1988 when I was here, and he passed away in 1992.
Really? We have a cemetery just for Jewish people, only Jewish people, and it's between this village and the other village might be 1 mile from here. And they are Henry Kissinger's grandparents. Yeah.
And so they were from here?
Yes.
The grandparents?
They were from a small town next to Nuremberg, but the roots must have been here in this village. Yeah. What a small world. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah, now
We have never seen geraniums as thick as those up
and
there
we kind of
in here in Marlsweissach. What an incredible crop.
and the hanging baskets.
Yeah.
For all the people who are mental ill.
Can you tell me that again, Ilse?
Yeah, there is a home for elder people. They are mental ill, and this house is from the Protestant church.
And the cross is represents it there on the hill.
Represents, yeah, the church and the mind of the house.
Yeah, right outside of Marlsweissach here.
Yeah.
That's what you saw. That's it.
The church steeple dominates the entire little town. It's just a lovely scene. And right in the town there's a small field of hay here, which, because they've had a great deal of rain this year, is very abundant in its production. Elsa has taken us around here to house number 1, and this is the famous cornerstone that I had seen years ago and had pictures of, and it was the home of the Storff, S-T-O-R-F-F family, and the date on the cornerstone, though it's been painted over, is 1807, and it's there 2 times, so we're pretty sure that's an accurate date. And the Mauermeister, that is the builder,
Johannes Storff
was Johannes Storff
and Anna,
and Anna
I think Katharina
Katharina Storffin.
Storff, yeah,
Storffen.
Storffin, yeah,
Storffin.
could be, yeah.
And Elsa, who grew up here in
Yeah.
this village, knew about this house many years ago.
Yeah, around about 50 years ago, it was a small house, 1 level, just 1 level. And
It just had 1 level at that time?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
one, and a small roof.
Oh, yes.
And here was a gas station outside,
Huh.
and the family who lived in the name was Rösner, and they were plumbers. They repaired houses.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, that's all what I remember. I came by when I went to school every day.
Oh, yes, yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But there's also a repair shop in the back, isn't there? Or there was one? Auto repair?
Yeah, auto repair.
Yeah?
Yeah, here, on this side, see?
Oh, on this side there was an auto repair.
Yeah.
I wonder if Frau Rossner is here.
Ah. Oh, and this, gleich.
Yes?
And this is a granddaughter of this Mr. Rosner here.
Oh, okay. We'll just
Also,
talk with her for a little bit.
Frau Rösner. Hallo.
Hi there.
Eine Führung ihrer früheren Verwandten, ja, das sind
Das Haus ist sehr alt. The house is very old,
Nee, da war Schwester. Wir wohnen noch mal dahinter.
but it's been changed quite a bit and very modern, yeah? Modernisch? Ja, alles, alles.
No. Ist keine Heizung.
Aber es ist gutes Haus, ja?
Ja,
Ja, stark und gut.
alte Lehmwände.
Mhm.
Immer noch
Clay,
das alte.
clay walls.
Ja, ja.
Ja.
Oh, wirklich?
Ja.
Clay walls. Uh-huh. Very good. Okay. Vielen Dank. In another small graveyard here in Marl-Swisak is another Bronig. And they go back some years, but probably they're not related to us. Our great-grandmother's name was Storff. We do not know how they might have been related to these folks who went back to the year 1858. Again, we find another Bronig going back to the year 98?
Um,
And 1888, I think.
yeah, it's 1989 and 1998.
Uh-huh. Very good. Oh, that's 89 and 98, yeah? Very good. But I don't think we're related to this Bronig family. The farmers around here have tractors and heavy equipment, very similar to in the States, and combines and all those kind of things. And it's interesting, they all live in the towns. There are no places that we would call farm places here. Their equipment is generally smaller than what we would see in the Midwest because of the smaller plots that they are cultivating. But here, for example, is a farmyard. As we look into that farmyard, if we had smell-o-vision, you could also smell that he has animals in here. And the cows are here in the barn. It's almost too dark to see them, but they're here in the barn. Guten Tag. Guten Abend. Sind Sie Bauer? Ja? Gut. Ich bin von Amerika.
Von Amerika?
Ja.
Wer sind Sie?
Ja. Und wir haben Urlaub hier.
Ja?
Und mein Bruder und mein Vater waren auch Bauern in Amerika.
Ja?
Und es ist interessant hier, alles ist
Anders.
anders, ja. In Amerika,
Die hören mich jetzt, weil
Ja.
die wollen was zu fressen.
die Bauern wohnen ans Land, ins
Ja,
Land.
ja.
Aber hier wohnen sie
bei uns
in...
zu eng hier.
Ja, es ist eng und...
Hau ab. Hau ab.
ja, ja.
Hau ab.
Und die Kühe, die sind jetzt hungrig, ja?
Ja, die wollen jetzt noch mal letzte Mahlzeit haben.
Milch,
Milch machen
Ja?
wir. Ja, Milch.
und Sie milchen?
Ja, wir haben da 38 Milchkühe stehen.
Ah, und Sie tun das ganz allein?
Nein, mit der Familie.
Oh, ja, ja, ja.
Und unten haben wir noch mal Schweine stehen, da über der Straße müssen wir noch ein paar
Ui.
aufstellen.
Oh, ja, ja.
Ja,
Und Sie haben Milchmaschine?
ja, Milchmaschine.
Ja, ja. Müssen Sie das heute Abend jetzt tun?
Nein, das ist ja gemacht.
Das ist alles fertig.
Ja.
Ah, sehr interessant. Gut, ja. Das ist Frau Hartleb. Hier in das Gasthof. Und wir sind so, es ist so gut hier zu sein.
Schön.
Thank you very much.
So, danke schön.
This is Robert's brother, who helps his mother, who is also taking care of the farm, because very sadly, Robert was killed in an accident in the brewery in 1991. This young man here told me about the border, the Grenze, as they called it here, and he mentioned that the wall, the fence is gone, and though people don't walk out there, but they're afraid of landmines. So this is the inside of the Hartleb Brauhaus, and As you see, people continue to enjoy fellowship. Johannes Gortner.
Johannes Gordner, yeah.
Gordner, tell me that story.
One of my relatives is Hollywood movie star B Pictures.
Oh, what's his name?
Yeah, Gordner.
Oh,
And he used to play in horror movies. And all
Sure, I
that.
have not seen.
But he'd like to hear something.
American Ninja 3. My wife is from Marolzweiser,
Okay.
and I'm a minister in Coburg. And I'm a manager of a evangelical Lutheran charity institution. We got about 500 employees, nursing homes, counseling offices, kindergartens, handicapped homes for handicapped people, labor stations, labors for handicapped people, and so on. And I'm very happy to have you here from the United States because it's our homeland, especially West Texas.
Tell me about the Hartlib guest house here
The
a
Hartlib
little
Guest
bit.
House, this location is a town guest house since the early 1500s. And the Hartlibs took over at around about 250 years ago. This family runs the place about 250 years. And
Amazing.
it's a great place. And they have their own homemade beer,
Oh, it's
And,
good too.
homemade food.
Yeah.
Beer in Germany, in Bavaria, is not alcohol. In the first place, it's food.
Yeah, it's common.
It's a food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a social meeting place for the people in the town, like the church. It's a social meeting place.
Good. We are now in the town of Coburg, where there is a large castle, and this castle, standing on the hill, is a place where Luther spent 6 months in exile without his wife and family. We'll go up now.
And you?
As we will notice, there are Lutheran worship services here every Sunday. Johannes is here with his family this morning, and he's going to show us around the Vesta Coburg. Good morning.
Good morning, welcome in Coburg. Have a good time.
What an incredible place this is. When was it started? Around 1055?
10:55. But
Okay.
battery's out.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
It was finished in the 12th, 13th century, and of course the fortress Vesta Coburg had sometimes in war times was almost destroyed, but rebuilt and restructured again. And Martin Luther spent the time from April 1530 to November 1530 during the Augsburg Reichstag here in the Vesta. And he worked on the Old Testament prophets like Jeremiah and Ezekiel. And he witnessed from here the Augsburg Reichstag, what's going on there, and there were messengers or what people from Augsburg to Coburg always going back and through to tell him, to report him the news, what's going on in Augsburg.
Huh. Because it was in Augsburg where a kind of peace was made,
Yeah,
so that each province or town could decide its own religion.
yeah.
Yeah.
And peace between Catholics and
Yes.
Protestants. Not a very peaceful peace,
Not very effective, no.
but a kind of arrangement.
Coming in the entrance to the castle, we are now inside the wall and looking at the same turrets, and it's an incredible place that's virtually impenetrable, with wall after wall after wall, almost impossible to focus in on. And later on they got cannons that were used to shoot cannonballs through the walls. It was in this room where Martin Luther spent 6 months in exile and where he worked on translations of the Old Testament. And this is the same room from another angle. And looking out toward the north, over this huge wall, we can see parts of the town of Coburg. Now this rampart here must be 100 or more feet above the ground. As we look down from here, we see a watering area for cattle, because these castles were self-contained places where the royalty lived and where in time of war the common people could come and live for even months because they had so much in the way of supplies in here.
Where's that? This one. Does the town go all around?
In one of the little corner turrets, there are these windows where the soldier could protect himself and shoot out of if he had to.
Oh, something was.
Yes?
This is the cistern, the main cistern of the castle, and it's 42 meters deep.
And that's where the water was kept?
Yes,
For
it was kept for cooking and to take a bath for the prince, of course.
very good.
Hallo.
Go ahead, Julia.
Hallo.
The story of Luther's throwing the ink.
There's this giant bronze lion, and Johannes calls it the dog of Martin Luther. Here we have an example of some of the cannonballs which were fired from a cannon, something like that one. This is a bust of Martin Luther, which says, "We will not die but live and tell of the works of the Lord." He looks a bit gruff there, doesn't he? We're inside of the Augustinian cloister, and it was destroyed in World War II, and therefore has been rebuilt. But this is the kind of room that Martin Luther used when he was a monk here. And this is where he did his studying. There was only a chair, a table, and a bed. And through the great work, the bishops could come and look and see whether or not actually Luther was studying or whether he was sleeping. They were only permitted to sleep about 4 hours a day. And there are a number of books here, some of which have Luther's own handwriting. And we have Luther's own handwriting right here. This is a picture of Luther when he was a monk, and this was a bit later while he was still a student. This is a model of the cloister and the church where Martin Luther was ordained. This is the passageway inside of the cloister where Luther studied, and it has been completely rebuilt, somewhat to the same form that it was in before. Stands Martin Luther right there. Look at him. He's standing right there. I tell you.
Here I stand. I can't move any further from here because I can't walk anymore.
So ends the speaking of Martin Luther. Here are the residential parts of the cloister, which have been rebuilt according to the original plan. Luther reportedly came down this way from the alley, from his room, and went into the church there to have his prayers at various times of the day. We are in the city of Wittenberg, called Luthertown. Wittenberg, called Lutherstadt, is located in what used to be the East German zone, or by the railroad. And as we look across from the railroad, we see the tower of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, where Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses. Standing against the rising of the morning sun about 6:30 in the morning, we see this tower and the spires of the church. And we'll get a little better look at that later in the morning. It is Sunday morning, and we will have the opportunity to go to church in the very church where Martin Luther nailed the Theses. I was without batteries for the video camera for a day and a half. During that day and a half, we went to the place where Luther, to Erfurt, where Luther had been ordained and where he celebrated his first Mass. And then we also went into Berlin, where we saw the Berlin Gate and the great Berlin Cathedral, which is Lutheran. And now we are here in this town. We have noticed as we entered the East Zone that things are much less developed, and there's a lot of obvious poverty and a lot of dilapidated buildings. 7 years ago, we could never have even visited this place, nor would I dare have taken pictures from any vantage point. We couldn't have seen this. We couldn't have seen this tower or this town. But now, with freedom having come, we are here, and people are beginning to become encouraged. They're planting beautiful gardens, and things are going. We're looking into the sun up the street toward the east, where the cathedral is, and this is a very busy street. We happened to get our guest house right on this busy street. It was a very noisy night, but we were sleeping upstairs there, right in that room, and now we're waiting the arrival of a train. After the death of Luther, the residents of Wittenberg voted to call this Lutherstadt, the town of Luther. And we are right at this point, we are right down in this area here. We're sleeping right about there where the railroad comes in, and there's the church and the castle. And we took a walk into the town square last night and found it to be a very nice, quiet place. The train is coming now. But there were no passengers for here. As we approach the castle and the church, we're walking along a street that's called Schlussplatz, and there are gardens over to the side in front of the Schloss, or the castle. And there you can see the castle where Luther lived and studied and taught for much of his life. He came here around the year 1513, being assigned here to the Augustinian monastery, which was in the castle, and he spent most of the rest of his life, except for a year or so when he was in exile, in this castle and preaching at the church, which is located right on the street next to the castle. And there is the church. You've seen the steeple going high over against the sun. The church clock has just struck 9, and we're taking a walking tour through the town. This is the main street, one of the main streets of the town, and we can see the signs of dilapidation and neglect which occurred over the years that it was under communist rule. Buildings like this, which have been abandoned. They are gradually being restored. Ahead of us is the Rathaus, or the town square, with the 2 turrets there. We will go and see that now, and also the church, another church. We had a marvelous dinner here last night. I had brook trout with mushrooms and snow peas. Joan had turkey, and all of the food was just wonderfully seasoned and most tasty and very abundant. The other church clock is striking. It's about 7 minutes late, and that's that church which we saw before. And in front of us is the Rathaus, or the town hall, which appears to be in fairly good condition. It's a very beautiful building. And there is a statue of Melanchthon, which we'll look at a little bit more in detail. And the second statue right behind the lamppost there of Luther. This is the statue of Luther in front of the Rathaus in the town square of Wittenberg. And in the front of it is a plaque which says, "Believe in the gospel." On this side is a plaque which says, if it is God's work, it will stand. If it is man's work, it will fall. This statue was erected, I'm not sure that we have the year, by one of the leaders of the area. And on this side we have the famous words, "Ein feste Burg ist unser Gott," a mighty fortress is our God. Melanchthon was a colleague of Luther's. He was a moderate and gentle sort of person, and provided balance for Luther's more volatile personality. They worked together extremely well, and he was a professor at the university where Luther taught, and provided a great deal of help for Luther personally. Who knows how many hundreds and hundreds of times Luther walked in this square, perhaps on these very stones themselves, and down this street. From his home, which is behind me, down to the castle church, where he preached and studied. Last year was the celebration of Melanchthon's birthday, and there are still signs around about that. And we have come about a mile from the church and castle to this place, which is called the Evangelischem Predigtseminar. It's apparently a Lutheran seminary where they do their final studies. We're going inside, and this plaque indicates the fact that this is still used for theological studies. And here it says, until this very time, the students come for their theological studies, and particularly the last phase of them, the preaching seminar.
Just exhibition rooms, and here is now in summer the Saturdays and Fridays and Saturdays the spectacle, theater spectacle. The meeting of Luther and
Ooh, they are bad.
Do you know where the dining hall is where Luther would meet and wrote his book Table Talk?
Yeah, that's in
Where is
here.
that? That's in here?
here.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Thank you very
you're
much.
Vielen Dank.
This is this old former monastery that Luther took over. The Reformation took over, it became Lutheran, and Luther moved into here, and people from all over the world came here to meet with Luther and to talk with him at the table, and that his book Table Talk is from his talks in this place right in here.
Something on here.
Here lived and worked Dr. Martin Luther from 1508, 1508, 1540.
No, she over yeah.
Here lived and worked Martin Luther from 1508 until 1546. Many, many times. Luther Hall. Let's go on in. In front of the building is a slate statue of Luther holding the theses in his hand. It's a massive building taken over by the reformers from the Catholics, I suppose, and has been used for studies for many centuries now. We are back here at the Castle Church in Wittenberg, and we are here at the great door. The door was replaced in 1977, and Frank says this is a bronze casting of the 95 Theses written for the people to see today. This is the precise place where Luther nailed his 95 Theses. And this is the church where Luther preached for how many years, Frank? Probably 25, 30 years?
20 years.
Yep. The bells are calling us to worship, and we will enter now.
You remain Catholic, that was it. Which is why we have the Reformation all around the church, primarily Northern Germany and gained deity. One step lower, you have a series of bronze medallions. Great reformers, but not only theologians. Across there we have the artists, Albert Dürer and Rudolf Steiner. Behind us, hidden from our view, John Huss. I've mentioned him earlier on, he lived a century earlier, prior to Martin Luther. His birth to the stake of Avenue Left, Nevertheless, it was that. And then at the very back, we have a group of limestone statues. Up front, hidden from our view, graced from the wall, the catalyst Martin Luther. This bread and meat, lunch made from motives according to Dürer, birth, death, and resurrection of Christ. Now the question often comes, how severely was Wittenberg damaged during the wars? The half of the town got off unscathed, which in itself is somewhat of a miracle. There was an ammunition factory at one end of town, airport factory at the other end of town. I always say you aimed very well. Someone came up with the bright suggestion that pilots were all Lutherans. Either way, the core, the center of the town is undamaged. But what 2 world wars didn't succeed in doing, one detonation in the ammunition factory did. Some of the windows fell out, the door opens here, and across on the other side. These were replaced in 1983 with European reformers. The one that is probably best known to you is on the left-hand side at the back there, John Knox. I had someone in a group a couple of weeks ago who was found an audacity that this guy had the right of place to be in a church, but after all, he was also someone who helped before the church. The altar up front, also a century old, is made of French limestone. We have Peter, Christ, and Paul. Now, the main reason the majority of people come here is because Martin Luther is buried here. Only he's definitely not the only person who found a last place of rest here. Some 80 people, 50 families all in all, have been buried here. They literally picked up the stones, lowered the coffin, put the stones on, matter accomplished. The church archives show us resting beneath your feet. There's no crypt, there's no getting down there. Here under the pulpit, the grave, Martin Luther. Now, experience has taught me to block off one question before it comes. He wasn't that small, he isn't folded up, he isn't perpendicular, yes you laugh, but you know, when these things come, that's why I block them off. If you look across there, there's this little boy seated on the other pedestal, the twin. That is Philip Melanchthon's grave. Melanchthon was buried in 1560. These pedestals were placed some time after 1560. Exact date unknown. Okay, we'll go and have a look at the inscription, have a look if anyone's into Latin. Okay. Anyone into Latin? Well, let's let everyone take their photos first. Maybe that's...
Here is where the bishops would sit, or the elders, and the members of the choir sit up there. Frank is standing at the chair where the Holy Roman emperors would come to sit to hear the preaching of the word. He looks very much like a Holy Roman emperor. Very gruff, yes. And behind him, Frank, whose statue is this?
That's the statue of Frederick the Wise.
Go over there by Frederick so we can get a whole picture of it.
This was just described. It's a very, very, very fine brass, cast brass statue. And the lady said that if you look at his eyes, that's exactly the way he looked. He was very stern. He was a very important man in his time. He was a defender of Luther, and he was a candidate for Holy Roman Emperor. He never got it because he was turned Protestant. He was a very, very important person. And he was Luther's protector.
And when we turn behind us here, Frank, he is actually buried on this side. Is that correct?
That's right. He's buried right, I think, one of the first things. Right?
Under one of these bronze plaques. It's Sunday afternoon, and we've left Wittenberg, and we're now in the process of going out of Weimar to visit briefly the Buchenwald concentration camp.
Here's the camp, yeah. Okay, well then it's back the other way.
Barracks. The barracks are here.
Die haben ja wirklich mit ihren Familien, die haben ein richtig normales Familienleben geführt.
Genau.
richtig mit Kindern
Teile und versucht. Teile Welt, ja, wir haben die Familie. Haben wir gewohnt wie Leute in ihrem Wohnhaus in
Was hat der Vater
Bayern.
gemacht, gearbeitet?
Nee, der war
This is Buchenwald, and this is one of the administration buildings and entrances. Here on this hillside were all the barracks where the people were housed. Sample barracks are preserved, and the places where the barracks once were are there, the rectangular plots. In the distance are the hills and valleys of the Weimar environment. The electrified fences are an illustration of how serious they were not to let anyone escape. And then you have the bunkers at the corners with men with soldiers and machine guns to keep the people in. The barracks were out here, and no doubt factories where the slave labor of the prisoners was used. And over on that side, the chimney is the crematorium chimney, where the bodies were burned. This is called Roll Call Square, where the people were periodically assembled in this area. The words in German, jedem das Seine, means you get what you deserve. We're puffing up the hill here to the Wartburg, which is a castle where Luther spent some time in exile translating the New Testament. And looking up, it's right above us here. It's one of the largest castles in Germany. Now we've come to the main Wartburg Festa, or castle. It's a mammoth thing, perhaps the largest in the entire, in all of Germany. At the top is a cross. Hitler argued with the people responsible for the castle and with the townspeople for the right to put a swastika in the place of that cross. So far as we know, it was never, he never succeeded. It's a vast, mammoth place. It's been largely restored. And this is the main entrance. At the entrance is a drawbridge. And looking out over the valley, and this is very high on the hill, is the town of Wartburg. I'm sorry, the town of Eisenach, where Bach was born. Immediately after the Diet of Worms, that same evening, when Luther took his great stand for the faith, he was spirited away and brought some perhaps 100 miles north here, and was exiled here for many, many months. And here he translated most of the New Testament into German. He probably came through this gate. Double doors, 10 or 12 inches thick, are here in this area. And now we enter the main living area where people would come. Looking down toward the entranceway, tourists are coming, and we see the grand construction of this place. Nicely rebuilt and beautified. And here's a cistern from where water was drawn. The doves are here, and you can hear them cooing. Now we're entering the second section of the castle here, and these folks have been interred here for many years. This is somewhat below the tower, and we'll go on in now. Again, we have the very thick doors made of wood with an inner door, a small door, which can be opened. We've just come through the second door, and this is the entrance through which we came, and here is the great tower with the cross and the flag on the top. Now these are living quarters for people who stayed here at this great castle. And out there we see the Harz Mountains, and then here are more living quarters. There's still construction being done, as you can see in the distance. This castle was begun in its building around 1200, and later on, as gunpowder and cannons were developed, they were added as part of the fortifications here. We're now in the museum, and here is ein Warfmaschine, catapult, used to lob rocks and burning instruments across the wall. This castle was founded by, according to tradition, around 1067 when Louis the Jumper fancied this hillside, owned land elsewhere, brought loads of dirt up here, and claimed that the land belonged to him because he dumped his dirt and began to build. And we've been through the castle now. We've seen the Singers' Hall and the Landgraver's Room, and right in that area there is where Luther's own room was. He came here in May of 1521, and he stayed for about 10 months, and it was in that building that he translated the New Testament into German, and that he wrote 13 treatises on the Christian faith and various aspects of it. This has been an amazing experience to see Wartburg Castle, with the place where Luther used to work here for about 10 months in translating the New Testament, and seeing the mixture of the pagan and the Christian art throughout the whole place, since Wagner and I think Goethe and Luther all worked in this castle. It's quite a place. It started around the year 1060 or so, and they've kept adding one piece after another as it's continued to work, to be built. Quite a place. To put the swastika there.
Okay. We're looking now at the forest that is down the hill from the Wartburg. And really, the Wartburg is up on a very high hill. It is way earlier than the city of Eisenach, and it stands on a high rock. And one of the most interesting things that I saw inside the castle where we are a series of 7 pictures that depict the founding of the Wartburg, and one of them shows several hunters tired, standing on the rock, and one of them supposedly says, on this rock, wait, O rock, because one day you will be my castle.
Just down the mountain from the Wartburg Castle is the home and birthplace of Johann Sebastian Bach, and we'll go and visit that now. We'll enter here where Bach and members of his family entered probably hundreds of times in a lifetime.
Hören uns mal so ein Musikstück an, mit dem Johann Sebastian Bach vielleicht die Orgel überprüft hat. Toccata in D-Moll. Man könnte heraushören, wie er zu einem Ton immer mehr Töne nimmt, bis ein voller Akkord entsteht. Man könnte heraushören, wie er die Tasten überprüft, wie er die einzelnen Register unten und oben überprüft. Ach, probiert es mal aus. Das man Ton aus. weiter welche, die haben wie so einen Trichter nach oben, wie eine Posaune oder eine Trompete. Da gibt es welche, sie sind ganz gleichmäßig wie diese hier, und welche haben einen Deckel drauf und welche haben keinen Deckel drauf, und das ergibt die unterschiedlichen Töne. Und bei dieser Orgel hier sind es 3 Register, die alle wie eine Blockflöte so einen kleinen Schlitz haben. Denn es gibt noch eine andere Sorte von Orgelpfeifen, da ist so ein kleines Metallplättchen, was dann immer aufschlägt, und das gibt einen sehr lauten, kräftigen Ton. Das sind dann die kräftigen Register. Alle diese 3 Register hier haben so einen kleinen Schlitz wie die Blockflöte. Und dann gibt es bei diesem Instrument für jede Taste eine große Pfeife aus Holz, eine kleine Pfeife aus Holz und eine Pfeife aus Metall. Und da sagt man eben, das Instrument hat 3 Register. Nun seid ihr doch sicherlich kluge Rechner, auch in den Ferien. Diese Orgel hat, wir rechnen ganz rund, 50 Tasten. Jetzt wissen wir ganz genau, wie viele Pfeifen da drin stecken. 150. Genau sind es 147, weil es bloß 49 Tasten sind. Aber so können wir jedes Mal bei einer Orgel uns ausrechnen, wie viele Pfeifen in einer solchen Orgel drinstecken, indem wir 50 mal Zahl der Register rechnen. Und das kann bei großen Orgeln einige Tausend werden. Das ist eine ganze Menge Arbeit, bis so eine Orgel fertig gebaut ist. Ja, und das werden wir jetzt mal anhören mit einem kleinen Präludium in D-Dur. Spielt von euch jemand Klavier? Vielleicht hast du es zufällig auch mal aus den kleinen Präludien und Fugetten aus dem 2. Teil gespielt. Man kann es auch auf der Orgel spielen, und mit dem kann ich euch sehr schön mal den Wechsel der Register zeigen. Du hast versucht, da die Dame damals, nix. Kannst du es mal nicht so nachmachen? Auch so schön die Herren hat es ein bisschen schwierig gehabt. Die mussten ihr Tuch hier vorne festhalten, dass das nicht so umgeht. Dann haben sie mit der einen Hand, mit der anderen Hand die entsprechende Verbeugung gemacht und mit dem Fuß die gleiche Bewegung unten auf dem Fußboden. Deswegen nannte man diese Verbeugung Kratzfuß. Kannst du mal probieren.
This is a marvelous museum of collections of Bach's works. This is the second floor of Bach's house. There's also a third floor which is closed to the public. And here is a sleeping chamber with a little tiny cradle there. And this is a sideboard where kitchen utensils were kept. As noted before, a large number of children were in the lecture and are touring here, and they're having a good time over at the cistern trying to get some water up. About here in the lovely garden that is kept with many, many flowers. And this is the house from the back. Honey, work. No, you gotta work at it. Work on enjoying. This cathedral was first built in the year 1000. When it was about to be dedicated, it burned to the ground, and now a new one was erected and has been added to over the years. At the base of the cathedral, there is this wonderful market where people come from all over to buy and sell. This awesome cathedral is too large to be able even to photograph. There are no lights on in here, only natural light from the morning sun. In the front, of course, the altar, and at the side is the pulpit, filled with marvelous works of art. No doubt many people paid a lot of money to have those works placed here over the years. A giant pipe organ is installed in the rear of the church. Was ist Ihr Name?
Angela.
Oh, was ist Ihr letzter Name?
Eisenmenger.
Bitte?
Eisenmenger.
Eisenmenger.
Gibt in Amerika ganz viele, die sind ausgewandert.
Wirklich? Haben Sie Verwandten da?
Ich weiß es nicht, also ich kenne es nur aus einem Buch von uns. Mein Opa, der sammelt Bücher über unsere Vorfahren und so.
Aha. Und was ist dein Name? Dieter?
Kirsch.
Tirsch.
Kirsch. Wie Kirsche. K.
Kirsche.
Ja, wie
Kirsch?
Kirche.
Oh, sehr gut, ja, sehr gut. Und wie alt ist sie? Bist du?
Ich bin 10.
7.
10.
10, ich habe gemeint, er sieht aus als mehr als 7. Ja. Und was haben Sie Spaß zu tun?
Ich schwimme gern,
Schwimmen?
Radfahren,
Aha. Nicht arbeiten.
manchmal.
Und? Ihren Namen?
Michaela.
Ah, das ist auch sehr schön. Und was haben Sie Spaß zu tun?
Inlineskate fahren, Fahrradfahren und Rudern. Und Go-Kart.
Go-Kart, oh, Sie haben das hier auch.
Ja,
Sehr gut.
natürlich.
Vielen Dank. Vielen Dank. These delightful children, I happened to meet them right here in the cloister of the church. The church does have a cloister, and it's well preserved and well cared for. And out from here, we can look up and see the great tower of the church right up there. Those children were born and raised right here, and they haven't even been to Berlin. The word commonly used for large cathedrals is Dom. Not only are there great works of sculpture, but there are also great paintings, and they are way high above you, so you must look up. This ceiling has no artwork on it, as some do. On both sides there are biblical scenes depicted. The pipe organ has pipes both in the front and in the back, and we wish that we could hear it play, but we can't. Here is the front where the altar is. Here's beautiful ear corn, sweet corn, and it is quite expensive. That's like 55 cents. But there are products here from all over Germany, and really from all over the world. And everything is so fresh and abundant. The breads and pretzels and other things are super delicious here. We are walking here among the places where we would go in. Eintritt. Bitte, wo ist der Eintritt?
Bitte?
Wo kann man ins Museum gehen?
Da außen rum.
Vielen Dank. Oh, look at that. Bitte, vielen Dank.
Oh.
Klasse.
Okay. Good. You can touch it up here, so it's... Okay. Better try it up there. I don't want you to burn your fingers. It's still a little hot.
That's the oven or the stove where the type metal is heated. And here we have the replica of one of the original presses.
Please refrain from using a flash. So you can take pictures wherever you wish, but please do not use your flashlight, because that would harm most of the hooks here. So touch it there, and you won't get hurt. And now we can put that back into the oven, and you can see how it melts. It melts very quickly. Okay, now take a look at it here. There we see it's gone. Oh, after that one. Now, the next thing that Gutenberg needed was a so-called casting device. Here before 30. Okay. Nevertheless, somebody. And you can see that this casting device basically consists of two L-shaped halves here. Can you see those like two L's coming together? And then you just close this casting device, and here in the middle you've got an opening with a so-called casting canal here inside. See that? Okay? This part. And now I can take the matrix I just produced and put it here. So I close the apparatus this way. Then I turn it around, and you can see here's this other opening, and this is where I pour the hot metal into. Okay. Okay, I just take a ladle full of it here. Okay, what you do, turn it around, open it, like that. Okay, here I got the matrix on. Okay, now you can see the interior of it, and this is how this whole letter just was just cast. Okay, sometimes technological progress at the time. Okay. And now I can show you how to compile the page. Okay, now take a look at that. Here we got a manuscript of the Vorträge Goethes. So this here is a manuscript, and now we can take one letter after the other and put it here onto this tool, which is called composing stick in English. I don't know what it's called in Japanese. So that's a composing stick. In French it's called a composteur. All that in Japanese. So this here is basically good for one page. You have 42 lines per page, at least in the Gutenberg Bible, 42 lines per page. And so we got one entire page. Not in that case, because we have not as many lines as 42, but here this is just to show you the principle. Basically, took the wine press as a model for this printing press. All right, now what I need to do is add some ink here to this printing press. I'm just going to ink it real quick. Do that real quick. Gutenberg did it differently. I'm going to do it the modern way.
Now he's inking the plate
he used some other tools for inking his printing block, and I'll show that to you in just a moment. Let's get this back together again real quick.
An incredible innovation.
Okay, now, you can see a handle here, and this part is overlaid with a certain type of animal hide. I just wonder if you can guess what that is. This is dog skin. Can you tell them that this here is dog skin? Okay. Now why did Gutenberg use dog skin? He used it because dogs have no pores in their skin, so when they sweat through their tongue and through their nose, maybe, but not through the rest of the body, since this is non-porous. And this way, the ink cannot be absorbed by the hide, by the skin. Okay, just like that. Oh, we already got some ink there. And so the next step then would be to take some paper, and we can go to printing of the series. The lid. Just open the lid. Close it. Okay. Push that. Here, and all that's left for me to do is just pull. Okay, once or twice. And just gonna open that up again. And now there should be a sound while opening this lid up. There should be a sound like that of a kiss, as many people say, because now the printers say the ink now really kissed the paper. So that's the saying. Okay, well, let's listen to that. Yep, does sound good. And in fact, take a look at that. We just printed one page. Now there's one thing which is not 100% correct from an historical standpoint, because the colors, there were no colors there originally. Gutenberg left blanks when he printed that, and those blanks were filled in by hand.
We have here a museum of various printing presses as they developed over the centuries, up to a rather modern one here. And as you see, many of them were made in Heidelberg, and there's a far more modern one yet. I suspect that's the one they use for their own printing in this area, and this is a much larger one. There isn't time to see them, but this is called the Universal Cycle Machine for Relief Printing. And many other systems here that were used for the printing industry over the many years. These are typesetting machines, I believe, or type making machines with the lead reservoir there. And here there are type making machines. A tremendous step forward from Gutenberg himself.
Bible consisting of 2 volumes, 1, 2, one complete Bible, and another New Testament. So we will have altogether 1.5 Gutenberg Bibles. One complete Bible and another half Bible. Yeah, these 2 make one complete Bible. Old and New Testament.
Old and New. じゃあ旧約聖書と新約聖書だからこれが一つのセットになってますから完全な、グーテンベルグの作った、聖書なんだそうです。
Okay.
でこれが
Yeah, so he needed 3 years to print his 180 Bibles.
So 3 years, he made 180.
That's right.
3年間の間に1452年から55年の間に180の、冊の、聖書を作ったそうです。
All right, there are only 49 Bibles left today worldwide.
で現在はですね、49の
Purchased only in 1978 in New York from a private collector. He had that in his collection, and at the time it cost the Gutenberg Museum in the city of Mainz 3.7 million Deutschmarks. 3.7 million Deutschmarks.
ミリオン
Mhm.
そうね、7ミリオンだから1、10
Now, if you can see, this was the very first attempt at printing, but nevertheless, those Bibles already look perfect.
もう本当にこれご覧いただいたら分かるようにもうパーフェクトですと言ってます。
You can see that all the lines have exactly the same length.
ちょうどです。同じなんですか。行ですね。こう
This
ずれた
is
りとかしてないでちゃんと
version of the Psalms.
The margins are exactly justified. They have justified margins. Yeah. Yeah, well, okay, you can see there's no zigzag pattern here, so they're all very straight, and you see that they always start here at the same spot. They have the same length, and so the margins are always at the same size. So this is what is called justified.
This is a New Testament here.
揃ってるということを言ってますね。文字がですね。
Okay. Now, if you take a look at all this, you might perhaps think that Gutenberg made a lot of money when he made his invention, but this was not so. Gutenberg did not make much money when he made his invention.
彼が発明した時はですね、お金にならなかったそうです。
And Gutenberg asked that man to give him money so he could start his enterprise. Can you translate that into Japanese, please?
グーテンベルクはこの発明をするためにですね、大変お金持ちの方に借りたんですね。で、その方がオーナーのような形になってしまいました。
All his possession to the man who had given him the money before. So that businessman, he then became the new owner of the Bibles and of the workshop and of everything. Huh?
なんか訴訟とかがあってですね、彼は負けてしまってなんかやり出すんですけども、なんか破産してしまったみたいなんです。で、その結局訴訟で勝った人がオーナーというかお金を出した人がなんか、またショップというかお店を開いてですね、大きくなったみたいなことを言ってます。
Did he ever go back into business again in printing?
Well, he tried to. Actually, he established a smaller workshop, perhaps in Eltville, which is just up the Rhine near Wiesbaden today. And this is where he printed. And he, in fact, also printed a couple of leaflets for an archbishop here in Mainz, who was then, unfortunately, expelled by a rival candidate who had been sent by the Pope. And this way Gutenberg again got into trouble because he was believed to be a follower of that adversary of the Pope's candidate, and so he again got in trouble. So he was not very lucky with what he tried to do. And in fact, later on, he, since the new Archbishop of Mainz then actually recognized what Gutenberg had done, he gave him an honorary title of that of a courtesan, which meant he was able to stay at the Archbishop's palace, and he received a small pension, but he died comparatively poor. So, and this book you can see here, this version of the Psalms is not, as it said, a Gutenberg Bible. It's the Mainz Psalter